All right. Good late afternoon, everyone, both here in the room as well as online. Now, it is my great pleasure to welcome you here today. As many of you know me already, you may know that my name is Jonna Söderholm. I'm heading the External Relations Unit here at the School of Business. Now, normally it's our dean who starts off these seminars by giving a short update of our school. But since our Dean Timo is in a bit of a different role in today's seminar, it is my pleasure to do so. And I will now use this occasion, by the way, since one of the things that our team does, so the External Relations Unit does, is to actually organize these events. And I'd like to thank Anni and Helmi for their great work. All right, since it's important to get our real stars of tonight, or today, on the stage very soon, I will do this very shortly. I will bring up just a couple of different things. And this is a bit of good news. In short, our school, our program, continues to be a very attractive option for prospective students. Now, the figures on the table, as you can see, are actually from last year. I didn't update all the numbers, I just updated our own figure. And as you can see, going up from 3,200 to over 3,500 is quite a jump, approximately a 10% increase in that number. And although I didn't update all the others, nor the ranking, I can say that we are still, by far, the most popular study option here in Finnish universities in terms of primary applicants. And as you can see, the increase or the growth does not only concern our Finnish-speaking bachelor's program, the biggest program that we have, but also our English-speaking bachelor's programs, in other words, our international business program in Mikkeli and our economics program here in Otaniemi. Our master's programs, where we have a direct intake as well as our PhD programs. So very significant growth there. Now, this is good news, not only because it shows that we are popular, it's great, I mean, we're probably doing some things right, but it is also very important for us since we can continue to be very selective in our student intake. That means that we get in great students who at some point then become great alumni, as many of you here, so our alumni here. But this is particularly good news for us since, as you can see from the graph in the slide, the Ministry of Education and Culture has in the recent years tasked us to grow our student numbers. And this means that we, like I said, still continue to be very selective and get very quality students in. Now our worry, of course, is that how do we maintain our quality? We cannot sacrifice, and we will not sacrifice quality over quantity. So how do we ensure that we have enough resources going forward as well to keep up the quality education that we can offer to our students here? So I would like to use this occasion also to warmly thank all of you who have donated to our school. There's quite a few of you actually in this room right today. So thank you very much. Your support is vital to us. Now, one more thing before we actually get the seminar going. Now, question to all of you. How many of you have heard, or actually have heard, the Boston Promenade Big Band ever perform? So hands up, let's see a show of hands. Boston Promenade Big Band. Wow. Yeah, so a huge number. How many are or have heard of the Alumni Fest? So this is, wow, yes. All right, how many have tickets? Yeah, still quite a few hands up here. So this is, yes, a very fun event that we are organizing, a very special one, since Boston Promenade Big Band is turning 60 this year. So that's a lot of students that they have entertained during their years. So if you want to come and join us and reminisce the good old times, make sure that you act quickly, since we just started ticket sales last week. and we already have over 330 people enrolled. So act quickly. I'm sure we will be running out very soon. Talk with Anni and Helmi, for example, after this, if you want a ticket, if you want to buy a ticket. But that's all I wanted to say. So, let's then invite Timo, our dean, on stage first. It's my great pleasure to do so. And Timo will then start the seminar and also introduce our wonderful guest speakers, our esteemed International Advisory Board members, Sanna and Daniel. But welcome, Timo.
Perfect. I don't need the mic. Thank you. Thank you, Jonna. And welcome all on my behalf as well. There are many of you who are regulars on these, and something you might not know, that there's a long line amongst our faculty to do each and everyone's BBS seminar. I actually love that in our faculty, that they are really eager to come and kind of strut their stuff when it comes to the latest they're doing, and many of you have seen that. So I've been at Aalto for 4.5 years. Now came my turn, so that's how it works, and I'm really excited. I'm also excited about tonight's topic. This is obviously very close to my heart, and it's fun to see so many of you, both online and here in the room, equally excited. So we're talking about business education, and perhaps both today and especially the future of business education. I'm going to start by a short intro, and I'm going to ask some difficult questions here. It's almost dystopic to go through this list. Don't worry, I also have some answers, but I didn't type them up because I'm going to listen to my colleagues first and then come up with my right answers. But here's the list of things that we're kind of dealing with. Our field is changing very, very fast. And the question is, like the topic says, how do we stay relevant as a business school? So business schools traditionally are quite strongly driven by what happens in the US. We obviously follow the whole field, but especially what's going on in the US, and there's a lot going on in the US, and that's kind of spurs this whole discussion. So some of the questions that I can think of that we're facing right now. How to include quote-unquote new topics in the curriculum. I put the new in quotes because these are not exactly new things, but we're still kind of struggling to get everything embedded. At the same time, when the world is changing so fast, our model is, schools, universities make very slow turns, and that's why there is a challenge. So there are technological challenges. Most importantly, of course, artificial intelligence, both in terms of supporting the students on how they learn to use this, for us, fairly new tool. And then, of course, there are also, uses of AI that you kind of need to worry in terms of, teaching situations themselves. So, that's one question that we're working on. Then there's the corporate responsibility, especially the environmental challenges and the social challenges. I would, kind of claim that at Aalto we're not the worst on that. We have gotten some awards on it too, and right now we're part of the UN Prime Champion Group, where we actually have started a project where we develop materials for business school educators around the world to embed corporate responsibility into their teaching. Then there's a question of degrees in general. I mean, that's our product. We educate, we kind of come up with these perfect packages. We have students who come in, and we think that these packages will make them, good citizens and make them, very attractive for the job market. Is that going to be the way things work in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? Is that even the way things work today? That's also one of the questions that we're going to be talking about today, because there's certainly a lot of offerings out there. Online versus on-site. There's another question that I think, online teaching has been around for decades, but I think COVID was kind of the shock that changed the system completely. All of a sudden, it became acceptable to teach and learn online. So that's another disturbance that we're looking at in our sector. I think there's a divider kind of between the US schools and European schools, and this is a stereotype, so I may be, not completely describing the whole situation, but traditionally business schools in Europe have been a little bit more theory focused. The business schools in the US have their traditional, product has been MBA, which has been much more applied compared to a lot of our Master of Science programs. Which way should we go on that continuum? Should we become more applied, practice-oriented, or should we stay in our deep, theory end? There's another question that we're facing. And then, of course, should we go to the multidisciplinary direction, or should we rather focus on very deep knowledge on fairly narrow silos? All right. And then, of course, we have to keep in mind this mantra that universities make slow turns, as I said already. And now there is a fast-growing educational technology field. How can we keep up with that? There's a question. I just picked a few snippets that you run into online. There's been a discussion now for a few years about some of the traditional MBA programs in the US that are quitting. Why are they quitting? Well, traditionally they have been the cash cow of these business schools. They have been kind of the engine that finances business schools through tuition, and not only business schools, but the whole universities often as well. Now all of a sudden that machine seems to be getting some hiccups. And it's a pretty serious decision when you decide to quit an MBA program that's been around for 50 years. So pretty big things happening. There's actually in the US side, there are some discussions about whether their traditional MBA model should move more towards what we have in Europe. Master of Science programs have actually popped up in the US also in the last 10 years. So maybe we got it right and they're following us. I don't know. On-site to online, definitely a very, very big move that has happened just in the last 5 years. A lot of these American schools have moved from traditional on-campus 2-year program to maybe much faster on-campus 1-year program or online 1-year program. I've also noticed that, traditionally, in order to get into graduate program in business, all around the world, including our school too, you had to take the GMAT test. That's no longer true too. Even in the most prestigious schools in their programs, GMAT is not the norm anymore. Does that mean that they take anybody in? Well, they do have other entry requirements, obviously, but maybe there's a signal there too. Speaking of the online learning becoming acceptable, there on the top left, I have the ranking of US News and World Report best online MBA programs. These are programs that are 100% online. Now, if you look at this list 15 years ago, there would be universities that academically serious people have not heard very much of. Now, the top 3, Indiana University, Carnegie Mellon, UNC Chapel Hill. Those are top-notch academic universities or business schools. All of a sudden, they are on top of this list. Interestingly, if you look at it, students are paying good money for those programs. $1,600 per credit, $2,200 per credit, and there's about 55 to 65 credits in an MBA degree. So you do the math, it seems like this product is selling quite well, and look at the enrollment figures. Looks like Indiana has 1,600 students in their MBA program. Traditionally, one of the values you get from MBA program, you get the cohort, you get to learn people. I don't know how well you get that if you're fully online and there's 1,600 of you. So this game has changed in a major way. In the bottom left, there's survey answers actually from a couple of years ago. I think this was an ASESB survey. At that point, corporate recruiters were already quite okay with fully online teaching. I don't think this has gotten any worse since then. So you know, online is coming, or it has arrived. There's no doubt about it. Speaking of online, we have a lot of actors there that are competing against this traditional university-run degree system as well. We have Amazon Academy, LinkedIn, Google. They're all offering these bits and pieces that looks a lot like pieces of our degree programs. So maybe a student, a smart young person, makes up her own degree rather than getting something signed by a dean or a president. Then, of course, we have Coursera that has a collection of all kinds of things as a hub. This is not marketing, by the way, but I noticed that there's, for instance, a finance course at Yale taught by a Nobel Prize winner for free. So, you know, you get the picture. Things are changing. What do the prospective students want? These are different surveys from different actors. Most of these are actually global results, so this is not just US we're looking at here. But, you know, on the top left, it looks like the people who are going into MBA programs, they are still looking for quite traditional things. You know, advancing careers, etc. It was disappointing for me to see here that increased impact on communities was 24% only. I was kind of hoping that that would be a bit higher. Interestingly, also on the bottom left, students value opportunities for experiential learning and tend to think that courses are irrelevant if they rely too much on theory. I don't know. You see why I'm a little bit baffled and why I didn't put my answer to these questions quite yet. But speaking of online, there is a strong message from students also that online is okay. And if we go online, we're competing with the whole world. So I think, especially in the US, this business is already concentrating to the big names, and the small names are struggling. And so that's part of it, but I think I'm going to quit here and let my esteemed colleagues take over. And I'm going to invite Sanna Suvanto-Harsaae on up here first. I think most of you know Sanna quite well, so she doesn't need any further introduction, but very happy to have you here, Sanna, so please.
Thank you so much. Good, you give me the clicker.
Yes.
My role in the advisory board is to be the reality. I couldn't care less about the academics and PhDs and whatever. I care about the fact, how do the students perform in the real life of business life? And that's my role. That's really, really, I'm so excited always to be here, because I have the academics in terms of Timo or Daniel or whoever, and I'm just purely saying, I care what happens in the business life. Those who might not know me, I've been sitting more than 25 boards across the Nordics and European bases. So I dare to say I have a quite wide comparison. I live in Denmark and I live in here. So I have a good comparison on that sense. So let me very, very short. I have I think 5 minutes you gave me. That's what you give. And then you get the questions later on. You can ask me whatever you want. But let me very clearly say, what do I see from specifically this time students coming from here? Is actually I see the Finnish students still be academically on top notch when they come onto the work market. I do find them digi and AI savvy, whether it's they're coming to school or they're just getting it because they're young, they're very ambitious. There's a one stop here. I see that those who come through the Finland come out of the university as a very, very young age versus their peers in Sweden or even in Denmark. And there is, I'll come back on that, good and bad on that one. I get quite a lot of raw people. They're young, they're ambitious, but they're quite raw. And they're quite well trained, done in time. What I mean in that one, we have a quite good way of doing and educating ourselves. We don't have these long-range educations in terms of people who are ever academics. That is at the moment for the young people not happening. They try to get through the school rather quicker than the maximum time than shorter, specifically in Finland. And that's great in terms of they actually are performing on that one. I have to make here. Because Finland has so few companies, we have a very few possibilities on on-the-job education for people who are leaving the school, which I think is a very, very important point. What I mean by that, if you join, as I did for my early career in Procter & Gamble, American big company. I mean, I was on the job training for the 10 years I was there, all the times I kind of executive ones. You go to Google, you go to Microsoft, you go to their internal universities to do these things. We don't have these things in Finland. Even the big companies in Finland, being global, don't have these in-house education. So in that sense, in Finland, we are in the difficult situation that the continuous on-job academic training isn't very well spread. And I think one of the partners, actually your MBA question, I can tell you easily why people are doing it online. Because a lot of cases, the MBAs are supported and paid by companies. And to be brutally honest, they like people to be back on jobs and do it online versus going somewhere and disappearing for 2 years and getting a new job. So what you do actually with the young people wanting to do MBA, you tell them you can get them, we pay the MBA, specifically if you do it online, and even better, if you leave the company within the first years after MBA, you have to pay it back for yourself. So there is also that trend on the MBA course, which is coming from the business side. But I think the later part of the fact that we have so little companies doing a proper executive training on the job is a great issue for Finland, which also this school needs to take seriously and part to play. So what do we really need more than the business life when we get them? Sorry, we get raw people. We get people who are academically extremely savvy, but they don't know how to socially work. And I keep saying this to Timo sometimes, that I ask how many times do they force teamwork on the education? That means that if there is a teamwork, they cannot choose who they work with, but they are actually forced to work with somebody. I think you were honest to me? 0. When you come to work, you do never ever choose your team. You are put on a place where you have to work with different people. We need to train this more. And this does not require a whole change of a curriculum. We just have to think about it. We have to train the left and the right brain. And we are too much training on the left brain. Here I mean the academically savvy mathematical brain. I love that brain, but it's a half a brain. The whole thing about these diverse teams comes also from the fact that I was giving a speech here a couple of days ago, and I really start to get a problem. I'm sorry, I'm very black and white sometimes, but I start to get a real problem with Finland because we think world is coming from Finland. It's the other way around. So I really, really lack people who take internships, executive trainings abroad. I think a good business school should force, at least on their masters, twice that one. In the business schools in Denmark, which is my second home country, both in bachelor and in master, you need to go nearly out for half a year. It's a bit different on universities to universities, but I find this great. There is no more better way of learning diversity and understanding different cultures, getting you to good ideas to go that one. I believe that if you want to be a top university, no student should come out of the school without being at least 6 months abroad. We need it. Finland is a little company. We need people out there who can sell and work with the international part of that one. I'm not going to go too much carry on that one, but people who come from here, I think we thought leadership wrong way around. We start talking about leadership as a management. We should talk about leadership by how do you lead yourself and how do you help the others to lead yourself. I think we should give credits for people who get through any course they are taking on a first go. I don't see this too much in Finland, but I see it in other countries where to optimize their scores or to optimize their things, they don't go through the exams on first go, they do a second go. I actually believe in work life, when you come to a board, if you present to us, you have one go. You can't say half the presentation, stop, I'm going back and I'll come back next month. No, the board might throw you out and ask you to come back, but not the other way around. I'm very, very scared. I was actually mentoring 5 girls, during the corona. We did kind of crop thing. They were from here, from this school. Fantastic girls. I'm very, very good. I'm not studying with them because I wouldn't get anywhere if I would be competing against them. All of them were under 25. All of them were doing dual exam, specifically in corona time. They were studying dual. They would all have in 5 times time 2 masters. I do not need a master in law and economics. I do not need a master on any of these 2 things. I love the way Swedes are going. They do double bachelors, engineering, business. but don't do two of the same type of things. So less dual masters, more dual life. And all this thing about what I'm really seeing at the moment as people are talking too much academics, if they don't learn life, I think I see quite a few, good to say, in my age people here. I'm quite sure we did quite much of, at least I did, I know you did, partying, social life outside of the business, right? I'm really afraid of the current generation who studies rather quicker 24 hours a day. It's not a competence we can use in the business world. We need full people. And then I think, and I know that academics hate me now when I say this, but Kahneman's book should be studied, and nobody should get a business degree and bachelor's if they can't know the Kahneman's basics by heart. If you don't know that, you can't get a bachelor's degree, master's degree, out of question. That's all I had to say. Daniel.
Super. Thank you, Sanna. I knew that we could get
you know that because I've been talking.
we could get honest and great opinions, and that was the order, and we got it. Thank you. Thank you. Next, let's invite to the stage Daniel Traça. Daniel has a long international and very esteemed academic career. I learned to know Daniel as the Dean of Nova Business School in Portugal, and a couple of years ago, he quit the dean's job, but he didn't get enough of administration. So you know, he's taking over as the Director General at the ESADE in Barcelona this summer. And welcome, Daniel.
On. Okay. Now I got. Okay. Thank you, Timo, for the invitation to come here and to what? I don't have the. I don't need those. Thank you for the invitation to come here and to address your community. Let me. You know, you mentioned. So you came at it from a competitive landscape. You know, what are the trends that are looking at our competitive landscape? Sanna came at it from, you know, what is it that when these guys come to play in companies, they play a role. I honestly believe we need to go way beyond this. I think that we are top schools. And let me start with maybe with the title of this presentation, which is, let me put this timer so that I can actually look at how I'm going. It says better business, better society. And I think we need to do better business schools, better society. And we need to realize that we as top schools, and this is not for all schools. This is not for all schools, okay? There are schools that should be based on training people that are going to be managers. We need to train people that we know eventually will play a fundamental role in our society and need to transform our society into a better society, right? So I look at it not from the point of view of where we are and where our competitors are, but I look at it from looking at our society, where it is going, what it needs for the future, and how it is that we prepare students that are going to turn that society for the better. Right? So it's an outside-in way of looking at things. So, and then, you know, the competition, I deal with it. But, you know, if I am looking at what society needs before my competition, I'm going to be ahead of them, whether it's online or not online. These are second-tier preoccupations, right? And so in that sense, let me make 2 points that I think are very important. One is, I'll go over in some detail, but one is our world, and I think you all agree with me, is not going well. You know, what you see is wars, conflict, populism, the fight against global warming is not going fast enough. Younger population, all the surveys, you ask younger people, they ask you, what are your hopes for the future? And there's no hope. They're just pessimistic about the future, right? So it's very clear that our world is not going in a good direction. Right? So I'm going to come back to that, try to give you my theory as to why. But I'll tell you what we're going to come out of it at the end. I think that our world is not going well because we don't have institutions that allow it to function these days. And what happens is that those institutions are made by leaders, by people, and are made by insights that come from people that think about the world. And so, in a sense, I'm going to conclude by saying that we as business schools have a fundamental role to play in turning our society from what I call the cycle of fear, which is where we are now, into a cycle of hope, which is where we wanted to come back to. And this means for us at business schools, much more dramatic changes than online versus offline, whether we do a little bit on courses and not courses. I mean, this is a fundamental change in the way we organize ourselves to be fundamentally focused on the outside and not on looking at ourselves and our competitors. And I'm going to tell you that the first schools to do this are going to win the day, because this is what the future is going to be about. So let me try to make these in a couple of smaller points. So the first thing is, why do I believe that the world is not working these days? And my theory is very simple. Human beings are, just to be very clear, human beings are very tribalistic. We are wonderful at working with our peers, but we're very bad at working outside of our context of confidence. And the only way we actually do great human progress comes because we build institutions that allow us to work outside of our comfort zone. So after World War II, and I'm not going to give you a history lesson, but after World War II, we did the UN, we did the EU, there was a whole movement for desegregation in America. There was, I put a list here, so let me just make sure I don't miss them. There were, where are they? I don't know, it doesn't matter. There were all these changes that happened that made people feel very confident. And so what happened? People started feeling confident. They felt that they believed. They started cooperating. They started doing good projects. And that hope brought, that those strong institutions brought hope. That hope brought the desire of people to work together. And as people worked together, there was more value and wealth and happiness. And so people became more hopeful, and you got into this virtuous cycle. This was the story of the second part of the 20th century, right? Now, what happened is that in the 21st century, we got massive technological change. You have AI disrupting everything. You got social media disrupting everything. You have global warming, which nobody knew how to handle. Nobody had ever had a problem like this. We had globalization, China disrupting. So it is a whole new world where all these institutions that we created, the UN, the EU, all these institutions that we created have become unfit for purpose. They don't do their jobs. Look at the number of wars, the UN doesn't function. The EU tries to come together, it doesn't function, right? So all these institutions that we created stop functioning. And I'm going to tell you that if one of these institutions stop functioning, the cycle of hope becomes a cycle of fear. We are in a cycle of fear. We are in what I like to call, I don't know if you've read Nassim Taleb Smith's book about black swans, we are in what I call a lake of black swans. Now it's no longer a black swan, it's just a lake. They just come from all the time. Things happen, you have no idea why they happen, they just happen. A war pops up, oh, why did this happen? A crisis pops up, why did this happen? Right? And so this is what we're living in. We're living in that world where institutions have broken down. And what I'm going to tell you is that these institutions don't just pop up. These institutions are created by human beings. After World War II, people did it, leadership came around, we created the better 50 years of human history. And now we need to redesign them again. And it's our role as business schools to deliver the leaders, the insight from our faculty, that will allow us to redesign that world. If we don't do it, nobody else will do it. That's what I'm saying. In the end, when you talk about a better society, you really need to talk about better society. You need to talk about what are you doing to do a better society. And we have a fundamental role to play. And if we don't play that role, nobody else will. Nobody else will. Now, this is the challenge. This is the challenge that I think, top schools like Aalto, like Nova where I was, like ESADE where I'm going, this is the challenge that we need to make happen. And it's an interesting challenge because if you actually make this happen, students will flock in because students are also concerned. Young people are also concerned because they look at their world and they want to try to bring that back, that hope. Right? So now this is, let me see what I'm doing with time. I have 4 minutes. So this is the general problem. The question is, for us to play this role as business schools, most of what we were doing in the past has to go. Most of the way that we were operating in the past has to go. And let me try to bring you, I call it, 4 dimensions where fundamental change needs to come. And I think some of it is going to come aligned with some of the stuff that Sanna was pointing out. First is what it is that our curricula should come to. And of course, we need to continue to live in the math. Yeah, it's very important, and we need to continue doing it. That's important. But again, we need to continue doing the soft skills, the teamwork, all that stuff. But that we know. But we need to go beyond that. We need to bring people into a social, there's no social responsibility unless people understand society. And this is where I think, I was writing these over and I just made this up, so, don't quote me. But I call it the VIP curriculum, okay? V stands for values, where we really need people to understand why it is that values, it's not just what the values are, but why is it that living by values are important. The I stands for interdisciplinarity, which is much more than multidisciplinarity, which is getting all together. It's going back to the Renaissance, right? Where these kids need to understand, okay, you understand the technical stuff, but you know history. So you know where all this is coming, where are we going. You understand a bit of sociology. You understand technology, because again, technology is everywhere. You understand humanities. You understand Kahneman's psychology, right? And once you have that whole interdisciplinary view, you build a worldview. Not a worldview about how you manage a company, but a worldview about how society works and how we have a role to play in that society, right? This is the interdisciplinary. And then the third dimension is for after values and interdisciplinarity is purpose. We need to get these kids, what happens with these kids, and this is, I think, what you talk about, lack of maturity, is we ask them, what do you want to do? And they have no idea what they want to do. They have no idea what they want to do. So we really need our curriculum to help these kids figure out what it is that they were born to do, what it is that makes their heart tick, so that in the end, when they go through life, and it's going to be a very troublesome life, with a lot of volatility, they always know what the North Star is, which is the stuff that they believe in. Right? And if you build that worldview and that fundamental individual purpose, you're moving ahead. Now, again, this is not easy to do, because if you spoke to most faculty, they're going to say this is useless, and all you need to do is deliver the math and the finance, and everything else, it will come to front. It doesn't come. These kids, unless someone helps them develop these things, they cannot do them by themselves. In the past, family used to do this. The world is very stable. Parents could do this with them. Now, even parents are lost. Right? So we need to help them develop these views. The second dimension is we need to, as business schools, start working close and build communities. Our alumni, you're here, you have to be part of it. You have to continue to come back. You have to help us raise these kids, bring them to the future. Companies to be inside, because they have to tell us where it is that we need to do, how it is that we need to do. And this means that we need to transform ourselves from these very closed organizations, where we actually look at our peers and try to imitate our peers, into communities which are much broader and are always changing and always co-creating, and realize that faculty doesn't know everything, but companies can give us insights, and we need to co-create and open up. So this notion of transforming business schools into communities is a second dimension, which is very, very important. A third dimension is access, right? This is a public school, so access is more or less straightforward, but it's very important to bring that diversity. This is something that Sanna mentioned. The international dimension, making sure that if you are in a system where, for example, you may be inexpensive, but in the end, only students that are very well prepared are allowed to come in, you need to bring more diversity into your student body. That is the way you grow. That is the way we understand the world, by being outside of our comfort zone and being aware of whatever is in our surroundings. So this notion of access and inclusion is very important. And I think the last dimension I'd lead to try to conclude is this notion of impact, which is our faculty needs to understand that sitting inside an office and writing papers for people that are that nobody else is going to read is not a good use of time, right? We need to actually make them understand that, what in the end we need is insights for a world that is really struggling with how to manage itself, right? So this is a short version of a very long proposition, which comes from the fact that, listen, if we don't do anything, the future doesn't look great. 2, in order for the future to look better, we need to redesign our world, and this needs leaders and insight with the ability of redesigning it. And this means that for us at business schools, it's our responsibility to do it, but it's not easy, because we need to transform our curricula, transform our ability of opening up and co-creating with the world, transform our ability of opening up and having very different profiles and creating more diversity, and transform our ability of getting our faculty to be very much focused on the impact they create and measure it and reward that impact, as opposed to just, again, what their peers make happy. This may look very easy, But I've been a dean of a business school for 8 years. I'm now a dean of another one, and I've been accrediting schools all around. We're all struggling on how to transform ourselves. You should be very aware that universities and business, even business schools, are incredibly conservative organizations with a tremendous resistance to change, with a governance that doesn't encourage change. And so this change only comes, and I leave you with a message, if from that perspective, alumni are very important, because you can be a source of pressure. You can be a source of pressure and pushing us with the companies and telling us, that change has to come. I'll stop here.
Wow.
I had a few more. Sorry. Yeah, I went over my time. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Daniel. No problem at all. Thank you for taking us into the real big picture. I'm almost wondering if I should ask any of the little picture questions, but I'll start, and we'll, by the way, open up now. I'll selfishly use my chairman's abilities and ask first questions. So Daniel, you mentioned that, you talked about the purpose generation and all that, and you and I both know the challenges, and you mentioned them too. We have a team who's hired here, and that team is trained to do their research in a very, 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 very deep in their kind of individual disciplines. And you mentioned there's resistance. I often say that universities make slow turns because big changes happen only when you hire new people. We can't wait, right? Do you have any hints on first baby steps towards what you said?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think I'll make 2 points, because this was not the question that we had talked about. But, so I'm going to make it.
Sorry.
No, but I think I'll make 2 points from my experience. The first one is, I think pressure has to come from the outside.
Yep.
Pressure has to come from the outside. I think at universities and schools, if we don't get that pressure coming from alumni, coming from companies, coming from even, we bring management, it's not going to the change is not going to happen. So that's the first thing. Second, I do believe that there is a tremendous business opportunity, because I believe that if you transform your schools, if we transform our schools in this direction, in terms of, the curricula, the impact of our research, the openness and the co-creation, the communities, the reaction from the outside is tremendous. Young people, again, are going to come and flock in. You build brands for your school based on this, and you use social media, and then more and more students are going to, this is my experience. And students are excited about schools. Students are excited about schools that are new, that are living, that empower them, that allow them to create, that are very applied, that allow them to get into business in and out. So this change, I think, in the end, is rewarded by the fact that the market is going to come in, and the students are going to come in, and the talent is going to come in. So I don't think there is this notion that, if you do this, what is better, you do your responsibility, it has a cost for you in terms of your market. No, I think that your responsibility in the end, if you do it well, and if you empower the students, it is a tremendous tool for you to build a brand and to attract the best talent. And then you attract those kinds of people that Sanna was talking about. You don't attract the guys that, I want to study math because I want to do 24 hours. You start attracting the other guys. The guys that want to manage, they want to create, they work in teams, they want to find impact, which are the ones that Sanna's company is looking to hire. Right? And so in the end, it's this virtuous cycle that you can create, which I think is very, very possible.
Great. Thank you. So Sanna, you have background both in Finland and Denmark, and you have been lecturing at Copenhagen Business School as well. So you're probably a very good person to tell what's different between, say, CBS and Aalto in terms of connecting to the society and, making better society locally.
Actually, yes and no, if I put it this way. I do have there's a cultural difference between Finland and Denmark. And let me put it this way. One of the biggest differences I see, and I have to say it's one of the few things the government is right, but I see the academic world much more active in any debate in Denmark than I see in Finland. Honestly, coming here, I was trying to say, when do I have to go to find a Kauppalehti, that's a business magazine, and find actually an academically interesting article. I'm sure you will all show me, throw and tell me that it was in April, whatever date, and da. Honestly, I don't see this habit in there. And Denmark, they made a huge change on that one. They started to force, and they actually give a bonus. And you might say if it's a right or wrong, it damn works. Now all the academics are competing in different schools, and that's actually, to be CBS versus actually an issue, because Copenhagen, you have this issue, you have 5 different universities. Whereas then you have the South Dane University and Aarhus University, which is one university and all the disciplines are under. And these guys are giving the hell out of the CBS, which have to fight all the other 5 universities in Copenhagen. But the whole thing is what I think actually, I was initially very skeptical on that, but that they force the academics to be an active part of society. They have to be able to explain their stuff on a Donald Duck language, so people actually outside of these walls understand what's happening. And that has dramatically changed it. What you see in CBS, and I was talking to one of the CBS professors 2 days ago in a dinner, and he said, I wrote another book. And I said, oh my God, another book. And what I just see is they write books about what I would call real life case studies. So he explained it's about consumer steps on the customer journey, which honestly, specifically, Finnish companies don't know what customer journey is. Okay, don't tell it. But honestly, it's just because the academics and the professors keep that. Of course, these are extremely important and interesting stuff on the newspapers. So I see there is like an Atlantic Ocean between the academics in Finland versus the real life, and that has to be closed. Otherwise, the academics will live in their own planet, and they will not be part of fixing the society. They will be part of fixing the academic, whatever it is. So that would be my answer to your question is you need to get into the society, you need to be part of the society, you need to change the society actively instead of sitting in your little rooms and writing in your computer.
All right. Fair enough.
Good.
And this seminar series is actually a step to the right direction, you're saying?
In that sense, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But
because typically we don't talk about business schools, we talk about...
KPI next year for you and your team is to see how many articles you had in the relevant newspapers in Finland, public newspapers, not specifically academic things. And if you double it next year, you're good.
Very good. Point taken.
I'll follow it up on the advice. I might be thrown out of the advisory by now.
We're just an advisory board.
Exactly, I know.
We're not the board. We're just an advisory board.
He's going to throw me out from the advisory on this one. No, but honestly,
good advice is always taken.
No, but you understand, it's part of being part of society. I think that's the difference at the moment in Denmark and Finland. The academics play part of it much more actively.
Good. Let me ask you another question. Are business degrees dead in 10 years?
No, I don't believe it, because the companies are so boring and lazy. They need a certain kind of thing of ranking the students who are coming in. So I don't believe on that one. We also need somebody to do the basic discipline. I think that the ranking might be different. We might want to have a different disciplines in 10 years' time that we want to have at the moment. That's a different story, and that might not come from here. But I don't believe on that one. That's simply because we need some frameworks. What I think will change dramatically, and I'm a big believer, of course I'm a big believer, but I don't think politicians will change the world or the community. The companies need to take that one. And the companies need to take that one because their customers will not buy whatever they are trying to sell if they don't get better in sustainability, if they don't get better in social impact. The companies who are lazy on that one will die. And the politicians are only mattering about who is going to elect them again in 2 years' time or 3 years' time when there is a voting. So I believe that the companies, and I see this change, actually I see it quite dramatically in last years, that the heart and the soft brain are changing. And the disciplines you're looking more is you take the hard part as given and you hire for the soft.
If I could add just more thing in that, I mean, I don't think it's just that the customers are not going to buy, is that the talent is not going to want to work for them.
True, very true.
Right, and so your employer branding becomes very critical, you know, what your image is and what your culture is and, you know, what is the role that you're playing, because other than that, what you're going to see is more and more talent is going to say, yo, or they kind of come to you, work for you for a few months, few years, and then the moment they get an opportunity, they're going to go to these more attractive companies. So I think, I think these are important drivers of change in the world, in the companies, which in the end, they're going to trickle down to what we do at the school, at the business schools.
True.
But if I could just add one more layer to your question you asked, Sanna, which is, you know, will business degrees be around? Yes, but they will be very different degrees. I think, you know, technology has to come in. So I do believe that the schools of business and the schools of technology are going to become one. We're going to be in the business of producing engineers for soft engineering for AIs and all that stuff will be done in engineering schools, but will be done in the business schools as well.
Yes.
Because what you want in the end, all these technology degrees, which don't require a lot of heavy-handed, can be done at business schools. And if you can create engineers which no longer think bait and bite, but they think business and impact, then you're going to be not only having tremendous impact in the business degrees, but also in the engineering degrees.
Agree.
But neither one of you think that it's going to be all, kind of mix and match from online sources.
Oh, in terms of online versus on-site?
No. I'm thinking of, individuals themselves kind of baking up their degrees.
No, I don't know. I mean, yes, but I do believe that more than 50% of the education that you get. I mean, I'm not saying, in the end, if you're going to learn a few tricks of trade, you're going to do that. But I had this experience during COVID, right? We had all these schools, and many of these schools send these kids to stay home and study, and it was a disaster. And the schools that actually did not close, so and when I was in Portugal, we decided to only close when it was really required. And the number of students that got the international applicants that were leaving all these other schools that were shutting down to come to us was just massive. And so I think that in the end, that experience of growing with your peers, of rubbing elbows, of going to the parties, of having that social life that is, I'm sure we all have these are the best memories of our lives, is that period. I think that's going to remain critical. And I think that in the end, that young people will still want to do it.
Yes.
And honestly, if they decide not to do it, I don't think we're going to live in a better world.
No.
I'm going to take my risk and ask a little question from you anyways, Daniel. So when we talked about differences between traditional differences between US schools and European schools. So which way are US schools going to become more European, or European schools, are we going to follow those trends that we looked at?
I'm not sure. I mean, we have people come from that part of the world. I'm not sure that the US schools will change, but I do believe that European schools have a tremendous opportunity for two reasons. The first one is that I think and you've seen this during the COVID period, the pricing and the whole system, the way, I think if you look at the price, the tuition for a US school these days, I would not send my kid there. Unless it's like a top 5 school in America, I think you get a much better education for the price that you pay by making them study in a school in Europe. And so I think that Europe has just that alone will be a fundamental source of competitiveness for European schools, which will allow us first to start going into markets that traditionally go to the US. LATAM, for example, Latin American used to go to US schools. Asian used to go to US schools. Oh, in addition, of course, the US is becoming less welcoming. And of course, depending on the election that's going to happen in November, it may become even less welcoming, right? So if you put together price and welcoming, there's a huge opportunity for European schools. Now, what does this mean for us? First, we need to change, because we cannot deliver just academics. In addition to all this, we need to start delivering service, and we're not very good at delivering service. We think that students come and because they don't pay a very high price, they have to suffer. It's not true. You need to basically deliver service. You need to deliver a tremendous experience to students. If we do this in Europe, we can start attracting the students that were going to America that are no longer going. China, India, these are very important markets. And I think there is a prospect that we can even go into American students who, given the political polarization in America, may decide that Europe is a great place to come and live and is a great place to come and study. So I do believe that I'm banking on it. If you look at where I'm going now, I think there's a lot of potential for us to tap into the American market and to get an increasing number of students.
Can I jump on that one? I have the luckiness of being mother of 3 children in the mid-20s who went the IB International School. And what I see, all these IB students who were very busy of going to study in US and somewhere else, they are all coming because of the values of Europe. They are really wanting to come back to master and studies. It's really funny to see all my kids' friends who were so busy getting out of Denmark, and then they're all trying to get back on Denmark or anywhere in Europe, and in order, because they don't buy into the values of the countries, specifically in the US they went, or any of the other that one. And then of course UK being out of this equation now in EU, I truly believe we have a value opportunity there. I have to say one thing, and this was this morning I had it somewhere else, and we said, one thing that the Finns have a real, I'm sorry, that's very Finnish things. You know, you can go to the high school in Finland and you do high school grades and you don't have any verbal test on languages. So you can be perfect on theoretically in languages, but you don't have to speak the language. If you go to Danish, Dutch, whatever of those schools on IB level, if you do a math on a high level, not only do you have a written math exam, you actually an oral math exam. On high-level mathematics, you have an oral math exam, which checks if you actually can explain the maths you're doing, rather than saying 1 + 1 is 2. And this is one big change. The Finns are so bloody theoretical that if we don't get out of this one, you know, this is an issue for both the society, but also when you get to a business school thing, if you go to Holland and you work with these people who are used to doing this oral thing, and there comes poor Finn who's never seen an oral exam in the university, they're in deep shit, to be blunt and honest. So Finns have to take 2 steps ahead in order to be blaming on this European thing. And that's also what I'm sometimes afraid. If the Finns would be a bit better off getting foreign, as soon as the Finns really open, they're getting foreigners, I will see in any international company, which I'm actually seeing at the CEO level in Finland at the moment, we are bringing foreigners into this country because we don't have the disciplines available enough or at all in a CEO level at the moment, because we need the whole person, the whole thing, and we don't have enough of these people, and then, or those who are not good enough. We need to bring a lot of people on the CEO levels. Unfortunately, these guys will be here 4 years max until the tax break disappears. And that's not good either for society, because the learnings they are giving is not in there. So we have some double steps to be taken in Finland in order to catch up with the Europe. But I agree with you, the youth wants to rather stay in Europe than the other markets in that sense.
But I mean, I think an interesting thing is Aalto, the Aalto experience. Maybe you can reflect on this, which is, you know, if you look at the project that Aalto was, it's one of the most, at the time, revolutionary, transformative, new projects in higher education in business schools in Europe, which is this idea, okay, we're going to bring design and we're going to transform this really interdisciplinary world where design comes in together and, you know, the business school comes in together. And, you know, everybody was talking about it. So the interesting thing is, given the way you mentioned this notion of silos and this notion of, you know, unwillingness to change, where do you feel that the school has come in terms of that transformation that the project itself had planned for it? It's an interesting litmus test as to, you know, the ability to change and to transform.
Yeah, I think on the teaching side we're doing quite okay. But when you look at the academic departments and disciplines, you know, those people are evaluated within their silo. And that's why if they want to build their academic careers, you know, they don't get credits for being, you know, all over the place. They get credits for being very deep on top of the world. So you know, that's the challenge.
Yeah, I mean, again, I mean, this is something that for those of you in the audience is hard to get, which is faculty thinks of itself not in terms of the organization, but thinks of itself in terms of the community of faculty around the world that they work with. This is something that only in academics exists, right? So I can be a dean and I can set up an incentive system for my faculty. But if my faculty realize that my incentive system is very different from the other ones, and therefore it reduces the faculty's mobility, the ability of going to other places, then the faculty is going to leave. Right? And this is why change is so difficult, and it really empowers faculty to stop change. So this is something, I mean, we've all, either those that have been deans or that are deans, we always struggle with this, and you know, this is something that from the outside you don't understand. I mean, you're like, why don't you change things? And they're probably like, you know, as Timo saying, you know, why doesn't he change things? Well, he doesn't. The hardship is that in the end, your faculty is fundamentally concerned of being mobile. So if you move away from what is the standard for other business schools, the faculty is going to start complaining, and some are going to start leaving, and you're going to have a hard time attracting more faculty. So just to make sure that you understand the internal governance of these schools and why it's so difficult to actually create that change.
And all this, I mean, the system is built upon that. Yes. I mean, you know, if your faculty doesn't publish in the top journals, you're no longer known as top academic school in the world. You know, you're not also going to be on top of these rankings because they look at the academic performance as
So
well.
when Sanna comes in and starts yelling at us, why don't you changing it? This is, we're like, okay, listen.
You can do both. Honestly, you have so clever people in the academics that I don't understand that if they have done this great article, why can't they do another version and sell it to the news? I mean, listen, we're not asking to do the job twice in that sense. We're asking them to use the job they have done in a better way. The same way I also see that one is I'm really, really sad to see very few academics from the business schools coming and working in the organizations. I think there's a great opportunity and the companies would most likely be willing to do it and take them. I think any academic who's been sitting more than 5 years, 3 months internship in the real world would be really good.
Very good.
You'll come back to me. I'll get them to
I mean, we've been floating some of those ideas.
We're voting Sanna as Dean of Faculty.
Yes.
I know I'm getting out of here, so I've been fired after this.
Be
one.
fast because we might.
No, but honestly.
Yes, and yeah, those are not enormous leaps.
No.
You know, I can say no.
And they make a
no
big
can
difference.
Do, so.
They can make a big difference.
Exactly. All right. Well, I promised plenty of chances of questions, so let's open up. Anybody here in the room wanna?
Timo is very quick.
So thank you for the very nice discussion. I have a question of student experiences in a real work life. And my question relates to the possibility, because at least in the Finnish context, you study bachelor's and master's in one go, in most of the cases. In the US, you may have a break in commercial break in between. But how to enhance this work relationship and experiences getting more real work life, how to do it, and should one in the university proceed with that route?
Is it for me first, maybe? Danes just changed it. They have a 2-year, they are encouraging people to take the 1 to 2 years between, because they have exactly the same way as Denmark. In Finland, you go first to the bachelor and directly the master. And they now have broke this, that you have a possibility to do a 2 years break. It's going very slowly, but people are, and in the end, when the youth sees it, they start to do it. So I'm just saying is I see if I would be a student, I would do it. They will work until they're 90 years old. Who the hell wants to be ready by 23 if you work until you're 90? So talking about growing as a person, I think it's fantastic. And internships, which we don't have a big tradition, 6 months internships, I'm not talking about summer jobs, but the 6 months internship, I think will improve everybody's possibility to get some relevance out of the master studies. So I see this changing. I said Swedes are very much actually, they take much more, the startup environment only take bachelors. They don't want to have masters because they think you're too narrow-minded. You're not opening up anymore. So I think there is at least I'm just saying what I see in the trend of different Nordic countries. It looks like it's going that way. And from the business perspective, I would love it.
So let me make 2 points to your, I mean, I don't know if we're both going to answer this question, but I have 2 points to make here. Actually, maybe more than 2. One, students, first you have to look at students. What do they want? Right? So students want practical experience. The problem is that when they graduate after a 3-year bachelor program, the companies don't want them. So it has to be an internship because the company, I mean, as you're saying, these kids are unprepared. Right? And so these companies are not willing to take them in for a year and then they're going to go, by the time they actually start working, they're going to start going back to go out of their masters. So it's very difficult for the job market to cope. So who does this well? The consulting companies. So those companies that see themselves as schools, they do a really good job. They get them out of bachelor and they train them in and then they make them go to masters, but then they come back. So this approach requires companies to change. So that's the first thing. In terms of their HR, they manage HR. Second, students, of course, want these experiences. So what you're seeing nowadays is more and more not just having a break between bachelor and masters, which, by the way, the German students do. So all German students, because why? Because the German system is all geared to companies close to universities, right? So the German students all do this. They finish bachelor, they do 1-2 years, and then they go back to do their masters. So, but because the business system is set up like that. But the other thing that you see happening is programs that even at the bachelor level start bringing in job experience. So even in America now, there are all these co-ed programs where you do one year, you're in the university, then you have a 6 month, you stop for 6 months, you do an internship, then you come back. So what you are seeing is, so what you see is the students want them, right? It's hard for the business to transform itself to actually give careers after bachelor. But what you're going to do is, I think it has to do with co-creation between the universities and the business to allow students to develop those practical skills that Sanna was saying as they go through the curriculum. And for this, you do not need to wait until the end of the bachelor's. You can have your bachelor's interrupted, do a semester, come back, and this you start seeing a lot of action. Yeah. And honestly, I think the market's going to go there. I think the market's going to go there because this allows the companies to transform, to learn, and the students to learn as well.
Well, our students, of course, most of them graduate with a lot of work experience, but it's outside our control because many of them work full time, especially when they're working on their thesis. And you know, part of it, I think, is dictated by the Finnish job market. You know, they won't hire anybody with fresh master's degree if she doesn't have 2 years of relevant work experience as well. So a lot of our students, they go into the work life, in my opinion, way too early. And it's horrible for us because the government wants us to produce degrees on time. We actually, you know, are suffering quite a bit from that. But, you know, it's something I don't want to say like, please don't go to work, you know, stay here, because it is relevant and it takes them further in their careers. But this is kind of, you know, one thing that I would love to change in the Finnish system.
I mean, it's just so one thing that we try to do also when I was there, and again, the students slowly start picking it up, is you can have a 1 year break, even if you're not working. You know, there's tons of there are tons of opportunities for you to do, you know, you go to Latin America to do things. So that sort of experience, it's so enriching. And we should actually be able to have networks that allow us to do this. And you do your bachelor, and you want to do 1 year where you're going to some place in Latin America or in Africa where you're doing this project. These are the kinds of things that I think will allow these kids to figure out their purpose, what they want to do, to get to know themselves better. And we need to start providing experiences that are about this. Practical experience in companies, self-discovery experiences, and it has to be part of the programs that we design. It has to become part of the programs that we design. And we create the networks and we create opportunities for this.
I think there I have to say one thing is another thing that is happening, and I always compare Denmark and Finland because they're same countries, there's a lot of similarities. But what is now happening, the business schools are moving more and more and taking less and less people directly with the grades, and they have more and more a combination of, you know, like in the US, where you actually do the, what is the letter called? Help me now.
The S.
Yeah, but you have to write a letter Y to choose me, and the kind of basically application in that sense into that one. But what also is Denmark at the moment, the best way you can get scores if you do a 6 months of NGO between your high school and your start of bachelor. That's the big boost you get. That's the most points you can get on that one. The same thing which you have in, you know, Canada, US, you get these boost of these things. So they are going less, they actually are they have figured out, and in order to get the diversity going on there, in order to give all people chance, and even actually get the, you know, if I look most of people who get graduated, which are going to the business world, is they have figured out that they want to have less purely only on grade-based students. And that makes a big difference. But it also makes a big difference because you have automatically a mix of people. You have those who've been very, very good on the high school. I mean, now Jonna is going to kick me here soon, but you know, you want to have those who are there, but you want them to be forced to work with people who maybe have different disciplines. They've still been completely dedicated to get there, and getting that one going is a really, really a great strength of a good business school.
Okay, we promise that business world. Next time we have questions, we have to.
I know.
Both of us have to.
Shut up.
Let's venture out and take a next one.
So I'm Shuwei, the alumni of Aalto, and I'm representing Finnish Happiness Academy. And I have a question here, is that you talked that there's a challenge for all universities. The change probably comes from the outside world due to press. So can you give 1 or 2 examples how, as a company alumni, we can give pressures to the school and help and go hand in hand to make this world a better place?
Yeah. So maybe I'll just take that. So 2 things. I think the first one is to create opportunities. I mean, you are working in a company, right? you have this feeling. So, if you're there and if you bring that company over and if you create opportunities for the students to develop themselves in this way, you can do this. But you cannot just do this by yourself, but you can do this by self-organizing. So, the alumni are here. You can create a better business, better society group that is part of the alumni. Not that the school is organizing, but that as alumni that you're organizing. And as you create that group and you engage with the school, you can bring opportunities, you can bring change, you can start. I mean, I'm sure the question, this is where the openness of the community means, right? So there are two types of schools. There are schools that are going to keep the door closed to you and say, I don't want you to bother us because it's going to create havoc and this is not the way we work. And if that's the case, then there's nothing you can do. But I think the schools that are going to win the day are those that are going to say, oh, you're getting organized? Come in. How do you think we can actually start working with the students? Let's create this. So we bring so it's about self-organizing. It's about empowerment. In the end, I do believe that nowadays, I mean, the way organizations have to start being places where managers give orders and people follow orders and become communities where people can self-organize within the context of what is the North Star of what your purpose as an organization, right? But where you become an open organization where you allow people to self-organize and start creating things, right? And I think this is something that is for organizations in general. I'm saying this is the way we manage at Finnair or whatever. But I think for schools, it's very much true, right? So it's about you guys as alumni coming together, organizing groups, organizing events, coming to talk to the professors, coming to see, how you can help, how you can bring in, but also demanding from them that they adjust. And it's for Timo to tell its people, listen, you need to work with them. You are going to be, the school values the fact that you're operating with these guys and that you're working with our alumni. And then the power of the alumni, the power of organizations, the power of platforms becomes massive. Why is it that all these social media platforms are so incredible? Because people meet other people that are like them. Now, sometimes they're not great groups, but sometimes they are very interesting groups. So, in alumni, you have something that brings you together. Just transform it into an energy of change.
I can actually add to that. I'll have a very boring answer. There's an election in a couple of weeks, and we are a publicly funded university. And even though universities in Finland are independent from the state since 2010, Ministry of Education and Culture has a lot to do with our funding, what they want universities to do and what they don't want to do. And we're even now seeing a lot of changes due to the government policy. So that's one way to have an effect. Not a very sexy one and not very fast one either, but it certainly does have makes a difference too.
I'm Jari Luomakoski. I just retired from Haaga-Helia, but still continue working there. Timo, you were mentioning about the balance between academic and practical life, and you were also talking about work placement or internships. What can you learn from the universities of applied sciences who at least claim that they are more practical and they have this, they call it work placement, but it's the same thing as internship. So is there something that you could learn from them?
No doubt. I mean, our goal is to produce, graduates who make better society. And as I said, even though it's great that our students get into the working life early, it would be nice, as Daniel said, to have a little bit of control of how that system goes. I mean, that was one of my culture shocks when I came from my years in the US to Finland, seeing how humongously independent Finnish students are. And it's good and bad, but the bad is that, sometimes it feels like this education is a hobby for them, and you don't have as much control over how your graduates really look like when they graduate. You can tell that they've met all the course requirements, they have written the thesis, but besides that, they kind of go a lot on their own ways. And if it was up to me, I would like to make it a little bit closer to the school.
Hey, so my name is Timo Pantsari, and I'm an alumni of the Mikkeli campus of the school. Also served in the alumni advisory board for a number of years. Timo, you presented a challenge regarding online, offline, but you didn't give your answer on, you said that, you'll give it at some point, but we haven't heard it yet. So should we, is online a bad thing? Should we have more offline, offline studies so that the people would have more time to network? Daniel commented a few times that, we should have, the students should have time to party and mingle. We would, I think, then give more full people and more balanced people to the business world, as Sanna was also requesting. So we're not looking for people who just study online, try to do hundreds of hours per week, and then without any social interaction, go into the business life. When I was in the alumni advisory board, I see that there's your predecessor, Ingmar Björkman, these days the dean of Hanken, Henkku. He's there, and when we were talking in the alumni advisory board on moving this school, so this campus, from Runebergkatu to Otaniemi, and we did a survey to the alumni. There's it was clear that the school needed to be here in Otaniemi, so that otherwise the Aalto experience or the interaction between the students would never happen, and we would never get the benefits from the Aalto University itself. So if we would, now, if there would be a more shift to online studies, wouldn't this be a really bad idea? That we would then get even more unbalanced people to the different businesses. And also then when Daniel said that there's also all the social impacts that that come with it, our duty actually would be to have more interaction between the students. So getting people here to the campuses would actually be a better idea. And the reason also when Veikko Jääskeläinen back in the 80s, when they were planning for the international bachelor's program, they based it in Mikkeli because it was impossible to get out of Mikkeli for the weekend back in the 80s. It took people they were forced to mingle and study there they were stuck there for a number of years. So shouldn't we follow that approach? So what our predecessor did.
It's a prisoner in Aalto. You lock them in and you let them out in 5 years' time.
Yes. No,
Make sure there's enough beer inside.
Yeah, exactly. It will work out.
After the COVID lockdown, we made a very strong effort to bring people back on campus. And I think just looking at the faces of both faculty and students, it's been a very smart move. And I really think that our strength is not on competing head-to-head on those offerings on Coursera, but rather offering things here in the classroom. And I think also, our students get sometimes, our graduates are really good technically. The soft skills are, perhaps not quite as good, and soft skills are very difficult to learn online, in my opinion. Maybe somebody does it better than I can think of, but I think face-to-face is, at least, I may be old-fashioned, but that's my way of going. Of course, during the COVID time, we learned all the tricks of how you can do, how you can deliver efficient education through online. And we shouldn't throw that tool away. We do have a few courses today that are fully online. They are fully online because the teacher has felt that, he can, the learning goals for his course or her course can be reached, equally well through that. I don't think as long as I'm here, we're never going to get fully online, but using both fully online courses and hybrid as support of learning, that's definitely, it would be dumb not to take advantage of that.
I could ask one from the online chat.
Yes, please.
This time. So this is for Sanna. Could you please name 3 capabilities most missing from the graduates when they come to work life?
Oh, can I only 3? I think I think the first comes to really of the fact that you know, when people come from, and I guess quite a few, when you come from university and you've been working with a very high, same caliber people all the time, and you face the reality, and you face there are people who work 20 years, which will tell you you're an idiot, and you don't know how to find a way of working with these kind of people because every company will need that discipline. So this understanding of reality and the interpersonal skills of working with different people with the different disciplines, I think that would be my first one. My second one would be a self-leadership. This is specifically needed in Finland. We are very hierarchical. Unfortunately, the Finnish word of lead, we don't have a word for leadership. We have the same word which says lead. So people think leadership is leading others. Leadership starts from you knowing what you want to do, finding this North Star for yourself. And because of the language and because the Finns are so hierarchical and we love to people to think, they expect a leader telling them what to do, whereas they need to learn to figure out themselves what to do. Let's leave, this is a big topic, so let's leave that aside. The final thing for me is I would love them to have been abroad. I've said these 3 things. And the reason for that one is Finland is a, I'm looking at, Pissy, Mississippi, somewhere north, an island. And you know, because when we first time met, you know, we both studied in Sweden, we had some, like you've been in US, I've been all around Europe. It gives you completely different learning also about Finland. And I understood things about Finland I never understood as long as I lived in this country. Because when you go somewhere else and you start to compare, you actually figure out what's going on. And the great thing is, steal with a pride. Finland is about 3-4 years behind every trend. So if you go outside and find something, you're likely to get them here. But it specifically opened this mind. We're a very homogeneous country here. We need this outside thinking. So those 3 things, please. It's not a rocket science. I'm not asking to get more quanti-scientific persons who can do better mathematic formulas. I'm asking people to be more of a full person that can come on and play a very important role and get things changed in the real world.
On the last point, I can say that we're doing okay sending our students out. About 2/3 of our cohorts do go out on exchanges, and we have about 150 schools around the world with which we have bilateral agreements, and that's great. I mean, our students, compared to, well, when I was a student, and maybe even a little bit after that, the current students, they are really world citizens, and that I'm proud of.
I agree. It even helps if they go there, but even to work a bit longer. But that's fine. That's fine thing. But those would be the 3 things I would wish them to have.
Do we have next question, please?
Behind there.
Yes.
Jonna, behind you in the last row. That's okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much also from my side. My name is Thomas Falk. I'm a Aalto faculty, and actually looking at the title of today's seminar, so how can we stay relevant? And maybe I have an overly romantic view on things, but I think one essential step, so this is rather, let's say, sharing my thoughts than like a question. So I think, and actually we do that to some extent quite well, I think, is listening to the students' needs and kind of caring for their well-being as well. So I think the math and stats and what they need in the job life and the skills, that's of course one important part, but then we should not forget about, let's say, the individuals and studying here. And they are surprisingly smart and mature. And actually, we faculty, I learn from them every day, I must say. So I think it's this interaction we need to create, let's say, the platforms and fora to really interact and co-create. Yeah, these are my 2 cents on the topic. Thank you.
But I fully agree with you. I think the kids coming out from here to work life are much smarter than their peers who are just 10 years older. much smarter, much better equipped. The issue is that they can't share that knowledge in a proper way when they have not trained the interpersonal skills. So my issue is we don't get the max out of these people because of, let's call it the lack on the soft sides. The hard skills don't get spread into the organization, and then they get demotivated and they don't like their life, and so on and so on and so on. But I think there is a huge opportunity. We're wasting some great talent by not having prepared them better to come into the real life.
Good. Elina.
Yes, thank you. Elina Björklund is my name, alumni from the school. Thank you for your great insights. I would like to have a concrete question. If I listen to your curriculum of VIP, I really liked it, of how the people leaving this school should be. And in theory, at least, we have a perfect platform. We have the technical university, we have the design school, we have business school here. So what could we do in order to enhance that interdisciplinary people meeting with each other? What Sanna is talking about, learning to meet with people from different disciplines and so forth. So actually we have a perfect platform here in Finland. So what should we do in order to get more out of this Otaniemi campus? I assume that is a question that we all as alumni or companies want to have a question. What do you do, Timo? And it's also up to us and others, your opinions as well. Universities say they are independent. So what if it happens that alumni, customers or companies and students just then don't come? What if they don't take the effort to push you? I think it should start from us at school.
Yes, indeed. And I think, so Aalto University turned 14 years old this January. We've gone quite a ways. Given these constraints that especially me and Daniel talked about here, it is difficult for universities to make quick turns. And we have quite often we have visitors from, say, other countries in the EU, ministers here in this room, and after the nice highs, we get to the beef, and that is, how on earth did you do this? I mean, that's the question you get from visitors from different European countries. So maybe we don't have appreciation even for what kind of a huge thing it is to merge three different universities with each of them very strong and proud traditions. So given that, I'm pretty proud of where we're at, but we're not there yet. We are creating study programs that take advantage of all different things that are offered on this campus, and we are establishing professorships and different kind of links between business, tech, and arts, we're looking for ways to do more of that. But yeah, I'm with you. That's where we need to go.
I'll say this one: if Aalto wouldn't be where we are today, we would be in really deep trouble with a business school. This is the future. The future is multidisciplinary, and people who are in the business know it. They hate to admit it, but they know it.
But if I could just add one thing, I think so. There are several layers to this, right? There would be a wonderful layer if all these faculty would cross-pollinate and work together in their research projects, but then they would struggle into publishing stuff because there's no journals for these things to go out, and then their careers are going to be doomed. So that you cannot jump there. I mean, that the world has to move to us to get there. Then there's a bottom layer where you are right now, which is, okay, so you have all these offer of courses. So I'm a student, I can go take courses here, take courses there. That's interesting. But I think there's a mid layer, which is, I think there should be opportunity, especially with business, to create projects where there's money. And money talks, okay? And money talks. If you bring funding, you're going to get people excited about it. right? Where you get these students involved, and these can be joint students that come from the arts department, from the technology department, from the business department, and then faculty that's also coming, and then you start making it project-based, right? And again, everything is baby steps because we don't know what works. If we knew what works, we would be there already. But we have to try different things. What we cannot do is accept that the status quo is where we're going to stay because we know that the world needs us to move somewhere else. So it's about trial and error. Let's try baby steps. Try talking to companies. Maybe there's a company that has an interesting project. I don't know. I mean, there are all these big Finnish companies that has a big project. Let's get these students together. They throw us a project, and we have to get these different faculty to work together. And maybe by then, these people are going to start knowing each other, and just by building trust, this is how these things are going to work. It's not going to come top down. It's not going to be a magic bullet, but you need to be pushed to try new things. Some are going to work. Some are going to fail. You take on the ones that work, you make them grow, and you try out new things afterwards. This is the process, and I was talking about before, this notion of renewing institutions. It's not that, unfortunately, this is not something where you do a team and you come up with a project. It's not coming up with a vaccine for COVID. This is really about trying out new things and seeing what works, and just accepting there's going to be lots of failure and moving on. But that's the mindset you need to do, right? It's just accepting, just trying new things. And for this, there's a layer which is top, which is where you bring the companies and you do this, but there's a layer which is also bottom, which is, just empower people to create new things. Maybe you guys, as alumni, can be part of the driver of this. Don't assume, as alumni, you can drive a lot of this change. I mean, I really want to leave you with this message. Not by just complaining, and for Timo, which has, is played full by doing the stuff that he has to, but by bringing in ideas and creating groups that actually can bring the opportunities to make these things work. Okay. Live, the world changes because of what we do, not because of what we ask other people to do. And so it's this empowerment that I think we need to bring forward.
I would also say that you should ask all the students when they start, would you like to work with a multidisciplinary course with creative people? All those who say absolutely never not, forced to be done it.
Or don't accept them.
Because the people who do it naturally don't need to do it because they have the mindset. It's the people who do not want to do it that needs to be, I'm sorry, forced.
But let me maybe not accept them.
I agree.
Not accept them.
Correct.
In the end, yes. It's about the way we develop students, and it's about the students we admit. Don't forget, you have two levers. Is what you spend developing them, and the students that you admit, and these are the profiles that you want to bring in. And if you all of a sudden, the top schools start requiring that students have that profile, then what you're going to get is the high schools, because they want to get students into aalto, are going to start changing their profiles to start training their students differently. Schools like aalto can create systemic change. It's not just change that happens here, it's a change that they can make happen into the entire system.
I agree.
All right, thank you. We're a couple minutes over 7. I think we could go on for a while, but I want to thank Daniel and Sanna. This was right on the spot. I loved it. These guys are part of our International Advisory Board, and we're actually convening tomorrow morning to talk about school strategy. I got a lot of mental notes for that discussion as well, and I know it will be a lively discussion. Thank you so much for being here and sharing your insights. And thank you all for being here as well. Thank you. And as usual, we have a little bit of refreshments afterwards here, so please stay for that. Thank you.